It's healthy and normal to get frustrated or angry from time to time. However, it's not healthy or normal to feel frustration and anger on a daily basis. This means your frustration tolerance is just too low, and it's time to develop some much needed skills so you can feel more peaceful and connected with yourself and those around you. Today, I'm teaching you my top 5 strategies to stop feeling frustrated and angry in all your relationships. So stay tuned. Welcome back. Season 7. We're starting season 7. And my seasons are a year long. So this is my start of my 7th year doing the Relationships Made Easy podcast. And thank you. We're now, I think we're in 180 countries now around the world and millions of downloads. And I can't even. It started as just me trying to give to people who didn't have access to healthy, good, effective strategies. And it's blossomed into this. A lot of you tell me that you're in therapy, but this helps your therapy. Some of you tell me you can't afford therapy or you can't access it, and this is working instead. I get emails and DMs, etc., from literally all over the world, and you fill my heart. So thank you for being here with me. Very excited for this season. So many good things coming your way. But I'm starting today with this whole idea of you being frustrated and angry, because that's what I was hearing the most about as I was ending season 6 and asking people for recommendations. So let's get to it. Let's talk about why you're frustrated and angry. Let's just start there. So you might not like hearing this. I'm just going to start right off with, me, with the, it's not tough love. It's just honest. Okay. And true love is honest. So you might not like hearing this, but the reason you're frustrated and angry with anyone else is 100% to do with you and 0 to do with them. What, Abby? I'm not listening to you anymore. I am deleting this video from YouTube, whatever. No, it's time to hear it, because before you get too bent out of shape, let me say that I am telling you this, I say with love, kind of for your own good. I'm telling you this because if your answer is not feeling, not feeling angry and frustrated, is for other people to change, is for other people to do things differently. If that's your answer, you're going to be frustrated and angry for the rest of your life. And I don't want that for you. That is no way to live. It really isn't. And whenever we see studies of people who are at the end of their lives or, towards the end in their old age, they talk about this a lot. Their biggest regret is how they let things bother them or worrying about things they shouldn't or didn't need to really worry about. And I just have to tell you, that is where you're at right now. So if you love being angry and frustrated, you shouldn't even be listening right now. If you don't want real answers to how to stop doing that, and again, if your only answer is, well, other people need to change, then I can't help you. And really, you should stop listening right now. I say with love, go find, I guess, someone who wants to. They're not going to help you though. I don't know. But if that's where you are in your life, then I have to support that. I can't get frustrated because you're not where I would love for you to be happier in your world. So, but hopefully you're here because you want to make changes. You know that, trying to change other people isn't working so well for you. And, you want to change. So here I am. Frustration, feeling that is your emotional response to stress, an obstacle, or really an expectation not being met. That's what I think frustration and anger mostly are. You feel frustrated when you're hanging on to control and not detaching from outcomes. The reason you're feeling frustrated and angry always boils down to you trying to change or control other people or yourself or situations. And today is going to be all about teaching you how to let go of this need to be right and in control and focus on acceptance and compassion instead. And this is not going to be a woo-woo podcast. No worries. I'm going to give you real these 5 real strategies that work, that they're going to work. If you even just adopt 1 or 2, you'll see a big change right away. So the research shows that, let me just say, I want to say this because it's important, that the research shows that not dealing with being consistently frustrated and angry leads to longer lasting problems. And that is something I see a lot in my practice. So the research shows that those longer lasting problems are things like aggression, severe depression, low self-esteem, and a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, abusing alcohol and drugs, abusing food, spending too much money, having sex with the wrong people. All of that often, believe it or not, can be traced back to you not dealing well with frustration and anger over time. So it's time to get very motivated to change this pattern of thinking and feeling, because because I want you to have a happier life. It's this time, and I don't want things to get worse, because they will. So let's talk about low frustration tolerance. And no matter how long this has been an issue for you, maybe you've been frustrated and angry since you were a teenager. I don't know. But no matter how long it's been an issue, having a low tolerance for frustration in your life isn't some kind of permanent personality trait. I hear people say, well, I'm just an angry person. No, you're not. No one's born an angry person. We're born with different temperaments, granted, but you're not born angry. That's crazy. You just, instead, your frustration tolerance, you have to see it. It's a skill that you either learned or didn't learn. How to have more frustration tolerance, or you learn the skill, which is in and of itself a skill, to have no frustration tolerance. So having a higher tolerance for frustrations means that you can sit with what you consider negative or difficult emotions with some self-awareness and some self-control, and control over your other emotions. And people who can do this are people who have learned not to see everything as a frustration, right? I did a podcast, an episode last year on growth mindset. I will link to it if you're watching me on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you are. It's going to be linked below the video. If you're listening or anywhere else, then come to my website, as always, abbymedcalf.com. And if you go to the podcast page or the relationship tips and tools page, where I write out a blog for every single episode, in case you have someone in your life who won't listen to an episode, but maybe they'll read for 5 minutes. I have all the links to the research, but all the episodes I speak about will all be in one of those places. So you can find them easily just by doing a little, clicking. Okay. So go listen to the growth mindset episode, because that could be a really good one. But basically, these are people who have learned to be mindful, and you can put like a pause button when it comes to upsetting situations or difficult situations, or having, again, emotions that maybe you feel uncomfortable with. And I do want to mention that I have a free mindfulness starter kit. If you haven't downloaded it yet, people love this thing, and you should. It's free. It's free. There's nothing sleazy or weird. To be completely transparent, if you download anything from anywhere from me, and any of the, downloads I have, the starter kits, the meditation starter kit, anything like that, that's free, you will be put on my weekly love letter list, which is only that. I don't sell anything. You don't get bombarded with emails. It is a weekly dose of inspiration. That's all it is. It's meant to sort of help you feel happier and move forward in your life. And if you like the podcast, you're going to love the love letter, I just have to say. So if you like anything I'm doing, get the love letter. Okay. So, but download the Mindfulness Starter Kit is probably a really good idea. So let's get to my top 5 strategies to stop feeling frustrated and angry in your relationships. And most of these are really a mindset shift. So perspective shift. So get ready. Okay. So strategy number 1 is that there are only preferences. I'm going to let that sit for a second. What are you talking about, Abby? This is the first thing to understand, is that there's no right or wrong, only your preferences. The mistake you are making is in thinking that the way you want something done is the right way, therefore others should be doing it that way. And this sets you up for being disappointed, frustrated, angry, resentful, all the good things, because you have expectations of a certain thing. Well, it's right. It's correct. It's the way to do it. It is 100% okay for you to like something done a certain way. I like things done a certain way. I get it. I know you find that hard to believe, but I can be a little controlling and some would say anal, maybe. I don't know. You could judge it any way you want, but I can be very persnickety and like things a certain way. That is 100% okay. But it's 100% not okay for me or you to demand that others do things the way you want. Just as it's not okay for them to demand that you do things the way they want. It's so interesting, though. We get stuck in our rightness and we think, well, objectively, my way is correct, so that should be the only way. No, it doesn't work that way. They think their way is correct. It doesn't matter. I want you to think about how many things you've determined are true or facts that your partner, mom, or coworker probably disagrees with. So some examples I have heard from my clients, I wrote these down like as they were happening with clients in the last few months. So these are recent, and I bet you relate to a lot of them. People choose to be gay. I had a client who thought that. People choose it. It was a fact to them, a fact. Being a stay-at-home parent is easier and less stressful than working a corporate job, answering to a boss, and commuting every day. I think this is a fact. Daycare is bad for kids. Pornography is the same as cheating. I had someone say that. I had someone else say pornography isn't the same as cheating. And that wasn't the same couple, by the way. The correct position for the toilet seat is down. Everything must be handed in by the deadline if you went at work or somewhere else. Everything has to be handed in by the deadline. That's the law. That's how it is. The dishes should be put away every night. Kids shouldn't spend more than 20 minutes per day on any kind of screen time. Now, and here's the deal. Let me be clear. You might have major research to back you up. For example, there's proof galore that there are many negative effects for young children who spend too much time on screens. And some would say any time on screens from an early age. However, this doesn't make it right for you to decide that your kids won't watch YouTube videos if your partner disagrees with that. I know. I mean, and let me show you why. Okay, let me be clear why. I could show you scientific proof that there are many negative side effects for kids if they eat any amount of sugar or preservatives. And I actually think you wouldn't even need to see the research. All of you right now to a person would agree, yeah, sugar's not good for you. I don't think anyone is sitting there right now going, oh, sugar's so good for you. No, processed sugar, sorry, not like sugar and fruit, but processed sugar. I don't think anyone thinks, yeah, that's really good. But does that mean you've never fed your kids sugar? Ever? You never had dessert, piece of their own birthday cake? Like, you just don't do that? I didn't let my kids have any sugar for the first 2 years of their lives because they didn't know how to ask for it. So they did not have pieces of their birthday cake or ice cream or anything else. That's a choice I made. But as they were getting older and they were in daycare and other things and other kids, I didn't want it to become, something else. So, and now my kids eat sugar. I don't know, like not all the time, but they have it. There's no absolute right or wrong because it all boils down to what you prefer or what you've decided is okay. So, like with the example I just gave, maybe you've decided desserts once a week are fine, but your kids watching YouTube videos isn't. This is your preference only. You're not right just because you've justified desserts to yourself. Do you see what I'm saying? There's objective facts for everything. It's again what you justify, what you think is okay, or the kind of, what the you've decided that, but dessert and sharing it, is special, and I wouldn't want to keep that from my kids. And that's fine to say. I don't have any issue with that, but don't then say something else is objectively bad because you've decided it is. This is the mistake people make. And here's the one I just heard this recently yet again. I had a couple I was working with, actually, sorry, I had a woman I was working with. I don't work with her partner. And she was talking about how her partner likes to spend money and she likes to save. And she said, well, I'm a saver and they're a spender. And I hear that one a lot. The problem is that I told my client, I'm like, you spend money. What are you talking about? You spend money. You're spending money on me right now. You spend money. How much did you spend? We actually went through it. I was like, how much did you spend today already since just in today? And she had paid for parking and at her job, and she had bought herself a coffee in the morning, and but no other food. It's just a black coffee, and it's not expensive. And she had a whole thing in her hand. She brought her lunch, but she was justifying where she spent money and where she didn't. And I was like, that's fine. You're allowed, but everybody's a spender in a relationship. I just want to say that right now. Every single person listening is a spender. You have money. So it's just about what you've decided it's okay to spend money on. Again, it's all about your preferences. You prefer, this client of mine thinks that mental health is super important, so prefers to put money there. She's someone who doesn't believe it's okay to spend money on lunches when you can make them much cheaper at home. That's fine. That is a preference. It doesn't mean she's right. There is no 100% objective whatever. And I know this becomes really hard for couples. Now, trust me, there are things in my life that I have a hard line about. Okay? Racism, someone saying a racial slur in front of me, I'm going to say something right away, and I'm probably going to walk away. I'm not going to let it go. I'm not going to say, oh, they didn't mean it. I'm like, to me, there's an objective right and wrong about that. That is my quote unquote privilege. But I can't then decide I want to be in a close relationship with that person if they're really racist and think that, well, I just have to convince them not to be. You see what I'm saying here? Like, that comes down to me making my boundaries around something, which is different. I can have a boundary around it, but just sitting in my anger and frustration that this person is a racist isn't helping them, isn't helping me. It's not creating more understanding or closeness. It's not, and I'll talk more about that in another tip, but do you see where I'm going? And so you can decide something is right, which I have in my head too, but we can't assign that to other people. Okay, that's not our job. And don't get on the law and things like that. Obviously, I would never think sex trafficking of children is okay, and I don't think I could ever turn a blind eye to that. Let's get clear. I'm talking about your day-to-day when you say you didn't clean the pot correctly in our kitchen. That stuff. That's what we're all talking about here. I don't think your partner is sex trafficking. Let's get real. I know people go in the comments and be like, oh, what about that? It's like, come on now. Yes, of course, there's those bigger things. I'm talking about your day-to-day in your relationship, and I am. So let's all calm down. If you're that defensive that you immediately jump to these bigger things to prove me wrong, then I would say you're not listening well, and I would really encourage you to listen better. Okay? Just because it's here to help. And if you're defensive, just look at that. Like, wow, why am I so defensive about this? Why am I looking for all the ways that Abby's wrong? Why aren't I looking for maybe that she's right? Like, how do I listen like I'm wrong? I say that a lot, correct? I say, listen like you're wrong. And so I would just offer you to do that. You can decide later I'm wrong. That's fine. Or you could throw this strategy away and use a different one. But I am just letting you know, this is all about my thoughts, right? And what I believe is true after 40 years of working with people and all the research, et cetera, of how you can be happy. So that's all I'm doing. All right. So, and linked closely to this before I get to strategy 2 is this assigning meaning or defining what someone else does or doesn't do. So if your partner leaves their dishes out and you put them in the dishwasher, it doesn't mean that they think you're the maid. If your coworker doesn't get the spreadsheet to you in a timely manner, it doesn't mean they're an asshole. Like, we assign meaning to things. We read their minds, we decide what it means. We say, oh, they knew what they meant when they said that, or they knew it was going to hurt my feelings. All this bullshit. Just stop that. In these situations, I want you to remember that, again, you have preferences, AKA you're not right. and ask yourself some questions instead of getting frustrated or angry. And here's what you can ask. And right now, if you were feeling defensive as I was talking, and I love you, and it's okay if you were, I want you to ask yourself, what's triggering me here? What am I so like, if I could believe what Abby's saying and she's saying I could be happier, why am I pushing back so hard on that? It's a good thing to ask. It doesn't mean I'm right, but it means you could at least ask, what's triggering me here? The other thing you can ask is, what does this remind me of? Usually when we're upset with something or don't like it, it's because it reminds us of something else from our childhood or from, growing up in some way. And we are reacting, it's a trigger, it becomes a trigger, and we're reacting to it now. So you're reacting, not acting. And I'd like you to look at that. The third question I want you to ask yourself is, what thoughts am I having about this? In other words, what story are you telling yourself about this thing? Are you telling yourself a certain story about an event, right? I just had this the other day. I had a husband say to me, well, she's reminding me again about attending the parent-teacher conference because she doesn't trust me. And she's just this controlling bitch. And again, these are thoughts that aren't facts. Okay, these are thoughts that aren't facts. So you're assigning meaning, you're deciding what something is, and it could be that she is very controlling. It doesn't mean she's a bitch, but it could mean a lot of things. But you are telling yourself a story about it, and that story is what's creating the feelings. You feel the way you think 100% of the time. So you have to change your thinking if you want to change feelings of frustration or anger. You have to change your thinking. And that's what I'm giving you today. All right. Strategy number 2 is to learn something instead of proving something. And what I mean by this is, if someone in your life is going to change, it needs to be their idea if it's going to stick. We know this in therapy, by the way. We use a technique called motivational interviewing, which I've taught before on the podcast. We use this technique where we're asking questions in a certain way to help people come to their own moments. You can't give anyone an aha. People have to come to it themselves. So this means you need to get really curious and start asking questions that will elicit good, healthy conversations so you can understand someone else's point of view. Remember, it's not their side of things. There's no sides. It's just a way they view something. It's a preference they have, and finding out how they think and why they think that way. That's your goal. So you're looking to learn something, not prove something. Go into every conversation that way, and you will have completely different outcomes in every relationship you have. So the easiest way to do this is to make it a goal to not make a statement, not make a statement when you're frustrated or angry, and instead to ask questions from a curious heart. This is the only way to help other people have their own aha moments. I do have a list of collaborative questions, ways to ask questions in an open-ended way that elicit more conversation. Can you tell me more about that is the one I use a lot. And the one I'm curious, can you help me understand that better? Could you say that another way? I just don't understand what you're saying, or whatever that is. There's a bunch of ways you can ask questions from, again, a curious heart. It can't be from, mean and I'm trying to prove something. You have to be there to learn something. But when you ask collaborative questions, it really opens up the conversation. So if you'd like to download that list of collaborative questions, you can, again, look under the video, come to the website. It's in all the places where wherever this is, this particular episode. But they'll help you print them out, put them on your fridge, take a screenshot for your phone, whatever, and have them at the ready. All right, strategy number 3 is to change the situation. And I like this one because it's kind of low-hanging fruit. So look to see if it's possible to change the situation instead of trying to change the other person. So for example, if your best friend is your breast, if you have a breast friend, that's pretty cool too. But I'm going to say your best friend. If your best friend is always late and it drives you crazy, change the situation. Take 2 cars. So you're where you want to be on time. I've shared before on here that I had clients who lived in the city who were sharing one car, and it was becoming a huge problem because one was always late and one would always like to be early. And so I always say, go separately. Just go separately. Some these days you can Uber or Lyft or take a taxi or the metro or the tube or whatever you got, and you can get there another way. You don't always have to have a car, but depending on where you live, you might need that. So get two vehicles and go separately because that's easier. Are you waiting for your mom to come over to take care of the kids so you can get to an appointment? Hire a babysitter instead. Even if your mom shows up 20 minutes after the sitter arrives, pay the sitter for the hour and call it money well spent. So neither of you is angry or frustrated. Or if you know your mother's always late, don't even ask. I don't care how much you say. Oh, I won't be late this time. Let me come sit with the kids. Say, sure. I'm also going to have a babysitter though, because I need to leave at a certain time. Again, that's your boundary. Just have it. Your partner's leaving their dirty socks on the floor yet again. Hire a cleaning person to pick up the socks. Make one of your kids do it. Train your dog to pick up socks and put them in a hamper. Buy your partner some awesome new sandals they'll want to wear every day, I pray, without socks. Or buy, 10 hampers and leave them all around the house so their socks always go in. The point is to get out of the helpless victim mindset and into being an empowered person, taking full responsibility for your own happiness. And changing the situation is often one way to take care of the quote unquote low-hanging fruit. If you have a person at work who's always late getting you certain things, you might tell them that the deadline for it is the week before. Start thinking. What's that definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. At some point, you've got to change that. Tell your supervisor, I will no longer work with Dan on this project because they're always late with things and then I get anxious and late. I need us to figure out a new strategy for getting my work from Dan. Otherwise, I can't work on projects with Dan or whatever. Figure it out. Don't just keep, again, being the victim and it's someone else's fault. And I find that's a lot with anger and frustration is that you're acting like a victim. I say with love, I'm here for you. Okay. But you've got to get real. I'm here with the real love. You've got to get real about what you're doing. And you're blaming other people for your anger and your frustration is at the heart of your problem. Okay, it's at the heart of your problem. If you're blaming other situations or something, part of your problem. Strategy number 4 is unconditional acceptance. And I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. So get ready. Of this mom I worked with, it was a mom and son. And we'll call her Deborah and him Daniel, since I just said Dan. And Daniel came out when he was 14, that he was gay. And Deb was not down with it. She had a really hard time. And Deb was a super loving and hardworking single mom, but she and her son were really having a lot of problems, some major problems around his coming out. And he was starting to act out in different ways, and it was freaking her out. So I ended up meeting with the two of them, and Daniel told her that he felt like she hated him and didn't love him. And he felt like she favored his older straight sister. And Deborah's response was, of course I love you. This has nothing to do with how much I love you. It has to do with me thinking you're going down a wrong road. And it's my job as your mother to protect you. You're making these choices at such a young age and it's affecting you. And there's danger out there for gay people, etc. Right? And I intervened at that point and I said, if Daniel was doing drugs and you wanted to intervene, I would understand. If Daniel was having unprotected sex or dating much older men and you wanted to intervene, I would understand. But those interventions would be about protecting him and what I do consider unhealthy decisions he was making. But this is something else. Identifying as gay is who he's saying he is as a person, not like a behavior he's impulsively doing. And Deb was a very educated woman but sometimes people are different with their kids. And she said, well, of course this is a choice. How does he even know he's gay? Her thing was that he hasn't even tried to date girls. Shouldn't he do that before he decides? And I said, well, does that mean that your daughter should be dating girls right now? Because otherwise how would she know she's straight? How do you know you're straight? If that's your logic, unless you date, if you're a female and you date other females. So I said to her, why is it that you accept that she's straight, but won't accept that Daniel's gay? You're telling Daniel that you don't accept who he is as a person. He's not choosing to be gay. He is gay, right? This is who he is. And when we don't accept our children, our partners, our parents, our friends, or whoever it is, and continually tell them that they're wrong in some way, that what they're doing isn't right, when we're trying to change them, you both, them and you, become resentful, distant, disconnected. And how can you truly feel that someone loves and cares about you if you feel that at a very basic level, that they don't like or accept who you are? And let me just say, as you make the shift of acceptance, this is what's wonderful. When you accept others, it's finally when people are motivated to look at themselves and make changes. John Gottman, who I quote a lot on here, Dr. John Gottman is a famed marriage researcher, but he has this quote I love. He says, people can change only if they feel that they are basically liked and accepted the way they are. When people feel, criticized, disliked, and unappreciated, they don't change. Instead, they feel under siege is what happens. And they dig in to protect themselves. I know. So, and I know it sounds counterintuitive, but if you want to see changes in a relationship, I want you to start by accepting the other person for who they are. It's from that sense of connection and acceptance that they'll want to make changes so you can be closer. What do I always say? You need to connect to correct. And this is a great example of that. Now, where people get stuck is it doesn't mean you need to accept behaviors you don't like, or it doesn't mean you don't want things to change. But it does mean that it's your responsibility at that point. Maybe you need to create healthy boundaries if needed. If you haven't bought my latest book, Boundaries Made Easy, I don't know what you're waiting for. The workbook is with the editor right now, by the way, the Boundaries Made Easy workbook. I'll let you guys know when that drops. I'm very excited. I've been working on that for a while, but it's finally here. So if you like the book, you're going to love the workbook. And if you haven't bought the book and just want to do a workbook, it does stand alone. But anyway, but that's this thing. So if you don't like, for example, maybe your partner drinks too much and you don't like that, I'm not saying you should just accept that, but I am saying you have to have compassion. Wow, my partner has a disease. This isn't about love. You have responsibility in doing some real research about what addiction is. What is it? To understand that the brain gets hijacked, to understand that they're not choosing booze over you. It's not a choice. If they had a choice, they'd be making better ones. It's the same, you got to think of it in that same way of being gay in a way. It's not like a choice. It's something else. It's something internal, biological, however you want to think of that. And so I'm not saying you don't want things to change. I'm not saying that you don't, that you stay with this person just because, and they're drinking and doing inappropriate things, maybe. I'm saying at that point, it's up to you to have boundaries, but you have to remember, I always say boundaries are love, and you have to have them with compassion and care. But when you say, this is who you are and I love you, and it's just, I don't know that I can live with you like this. And I get that you're going to drink, and I know it's not about me, and I know that you're making, that this is a disease, and I understand it. It's not something I can have in my personal circle. Or maybe you say, oh, we'll stay married, but you can no longer drive the kids. If you try to drive the children, then I'm going to have to, take them out of the house for their safety. So if you can you live by these boundaries? You might do that. I don't know. There's a million ways to do it. Or we need to go to therapy, or, whatever. You can have boundaries and you can move towards change, but it can't be with criticism, judgment, anger, and frustration. That's the key. It has to be from a different place. So when you can let go of those things, what you'll find is when you're just in like, wow, this is this person and I have to figure this out. And this is about me, not them. What I'm going to do, not what they're going to do. That is when people feel seen, they feel understood, they feel heard. And that is when, in my 40 years of experience, and the research backs me up, that people start to change. I'm not saying they change overnight. And I'm not saying it's an easy, one lane highway to the beautiful land, but I'm saying it's when it starts to move. All right. Strategy 5 is to take a look in the mirror. When you're feeling frustrated and angry with someone, I'd like that to be your signal to stop, take a breath, and look in the mirror. Now, remember, you have to be mindful to notice in a moment that you're angry or frustrated. So download that mindfulness starter kit, or be working on your mindfulness, or search mindfulness on my website. I have a ton of tips and ways to be mindful. Okay. Again, all for free. If you're trying hard to control someone else, I need you to think, what does this mean for me? Where are you feeling out of control, vulnerable, or fearful in your life that it's coming out in this way? Your actions are coming from fear. So this is a time to take a look inside. And I want you to take a moment and really think about why you want this other person to change or do something differently. Is it to make their life better or yours easier? Are you trying to control or change someone else? I say with love, because of selfishness, which it usually is. Usually people are trying to change another person in order to fulfill their own needs, to make their own life more comfortable or better in some way. I know. And I want you to think, how do you feel when someone tries to change you? Think about the last time someone tried to change something you were doing or saying. How did you feel? I'm betting it was angry, defensive, frustrated, sad, misunderstood, not heard. This is how others feel when you're trying to change them, when you criticize them, when you tell them what they're doing is wrong. And an example I have that's easy to really understand this, I think, is a client I had whose father, adult client whose father was diabetic, and he'd been diagnosed with diabetes and was having a lot of health problems because of it. So, gout and other things. They were going to amputate a foot, and his eyesight was starting to go. I mean, wasn't good, right? Her dad was in his 70s, and so she was all over him. Her mother had died years before. Her dad lived alone, and she took it upon herself. She's like, you have to eat better. She was at him all the time. When she would go to his house, she would take the ice cream or anything. He loved ice cream. She would take it out of the house. She would destroy it. She was constantly sending him articles on things he could do better. And anyway, this went on for a long time. And my client would be very angry with her dad a lot. And she would call him selfish a lot in our sessions. He never thinks of anyone but himself, but we had to take some time from her anger. I said, first of all, is it helping? Is your frustration and anger helping the situation at all? And, when she sat with it, she realized that, yeah, occasionally he ate better because of it, but, she wasn't with him. She wasn't living with him. So most of the time he was eating whatever he wanted. So no, it wasn't working. If anything, she said, it seems like he was digging in his heels more. He didn't like her trying to control him like he was a child. He's her father. So I said to her, I bet he's kind of defiantly, pushing against this and probably eating more ice cream than he ever has because you keep trying to control it so much. I said, but really, I need you. And, we really did some work on it. And she was finally, with tears in her eyes, she said, I don't want to lose him. I'm so scared of him dying. I've already lost my mom. She and her younger brother were not close. And she just felt like, she felt like she'd lost her whole family if he died. And I said, that's what you should be talking to him about. How much you love him and how, truly, and how you're so afraid of losing him. And she was also uncomfortable about being maybe saddled later with her younger brother, who was a problem. And she was the executor of the will, and there was some money there. And her dad at the moment was kind of parceling it out to the brother, but she said, it's going to come to me, and my brother's going to be a full court press on me trying to get all the estate, right when my dad dies. And it's terrifying me. And these were the reasons she was at him. It's not like she didn't love her dad. I'm not saying she didn't, but underneath there were selfish motivations. She was uncomfortable. She was sad. She was a lot of things, but that's not what she was talking about. Anger and frustration are always a top emotion. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Anger and frustration are top emotions. You have to get to what's underneath, which is the sadness, which is the fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, betrayal, fear of loss. It's fear, 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 fear. And you have to get to that. That Celeste Ng line I love. She's the author of Little Fires Everywhere and other things. The line I quote all the time from her, please give her a shout out if you know her, tell her to listen. She says, I think it's in that book, I don't remember if it's that or another one, but anger is the bodyguard of fear. And that is always what's here. So that's what was driving this. You have to get clear about what's driving so you can get to what's real and she started to have real conversations with her father. I'm not saying he started eating perfectly the next day, but I will tell you it drastically improved. And he actually started asking her, well, maybe I could keep ice cream at your house and just not have it in my house. And when I come visit her grandkids, her children, maybe that could be a treat I have there. And she's like, okay, let's talk about it. He actually started to problem solve with her how he could maybe still have ice cream, but not have it so available that, where he was eating it every day. Like he started to come up with, oh, maybe you're right. Finally he was saying things, because when people come to us with love and acceptance, we start to feel different. And a great tool you can use here is to work on appreciating the differences between yourself and whoever the other person is, and trying to see those differences in a positive light. What I see a lot in married or in couples who are together, you don't have to be married, sorry, in couples who have spent kind of more long-term together, what I see too often is that the things that attracted us to our partners in the beginning, right? Oh, he's so nice and calm, or wow, she's so energetic, are things that often get under our skin when the complexities of a long-term relationship take over, right? So then I hear, how can he be so calm right now? Or can't she ever sit still, right? These things that we used to love are suddenly driving us bonkers. And, because it comes to that daily grind in a partnership of, paying bills, making large purchases, decision-making, children, coordinating schedules, all those things that were so cute and endearing in the beginning drive us crazy a few months or years in. We go from opposites attract to opposites repel. So start identifying positives about their different approach. Okay, I know he seems to take forever to make a decision, but he really does balance me and my sometimes too quick decision-making process. He helps me slow down a bit and I help him move forward. So that's good, right? We complement one another. I've said this before, I don't want you to love someone else despite their differences. I want you to love them because of those differences. I want you to look to embrace instead of tolerate. And in the end, of course, like I said before, again, you can accept the person and not their behavior, but decide what behavior matters. Leaving the toilet seat up, not doing a good enough job cleaning off the kitchen counter. Are these the hills you want a relationship to die on? Looking at yourself and your own thoughts that are driving your feelings is the only way to go if you want to stop feeling frustrated and angry in your relationships. End up. So it's again really time to start doing that. Okay. Woo. That was a lot. I'm very excited to be back doing the podcast. Oh my God, I missed you guys. I had a very well-deserved few weeks off, which was really good for me to recharge and feel excited again, because I am excited whenever I do this. I feel you right here in the room with me, which really feels great. I want to remind you to download the collaborative questions if that's something that will help you, have little reminders around about how to ask questions and not make statements. You do not have to do all 5 of these strategies. If you could adopt one today and just start working on that, that would be huge. Again, I'm here to help. I'm here with love. I'm not judging you that these things can be hard. I am simply asking you or inviting you to shift your perspective so you can be happier. Do you want to be correct or effective? And I always say I would choose effective. All right. Mwah. Have an amazing week. Thank you for being back and for all your support and love for season 7. Please leave comments under the video. on YouTube. I'd love to see them. Leave some nice ones, okay? Even if you're just giving a shout out and saying hi, if it has nothing to do with the video, I do love those. I read those. It's a nice way for me to feel our connection, which really, keeps me very motivated and inspired when I do these. As always, if you have a particular question you want answered, you can email me at abby@abbymedcalf.com. And you could also go do a keyword search on the website. I have tons of, almost 300 now. We're getting close. So there's a lot of information I've already put out there. I've likely already done an episode on it, but there might be a new take on it. Like I've done multiple ones on jealousy because of people writing in and asking more specific questions. So feel free to ask for something that even if it's there and you don't quite get it, you want more, let me know. All right. Have an amazing week. Oh, I love you so much if no one has told you today. And thank you for being here with me. And I can't wait to spend more time with you next week.